So, before we pray, we have something specific we need to pray about this morning. We got a message from Gordon this morning, specifically about a couple that lives in Honduras that most of us know. So anyone who has been to Honduras has met Darcy. Darcy has often been part of the translation team on mission trips to Honduras. He is a worship leader, so he leads us in worship when we're down there. Darcy got married to a lady named Sophia, this past year. And they just found out that they were pregnant. But they got a report back from the doctor that the pregnancy isn't going well. And that there's a lot of complications, and that the best case scenario is that the baby isn't developing well and will probably have Down syndrome. The worst case scenario, the baby will not live very long after being born because of poor developmental phase that it's going through. So Gordon has asked, and Darcy and Sophia have asked if we would pray for them. And God is in control. God knows everything that's going on with them and their child and their marriage. And this is going to be, for a young couple that's only been married a year or so, this is going to be a rough journey for them. So let's this morning pray for them, but let's also pray that God is the author of life, and He also is the God of miracles. So let's just pray for His. Father, we bring Darcy and Sophia to you. Those of us who know Darcy, we haven't met Sophia, but those of us who know Darcy know his heart for life, his heart for servanthood, the way he cares for people, the way he loves to sing praise and worship and lead people to you in that, the way he serves selflessly in numerous capacities with Manos Extendedus, and the way he has become a friend to this church through all the different trips that we've done. So we pray that we kind of reach out our hands to you this morning, and we ask that you would take this couple and the birth of their child, and that you would work miracles. That whatever your will be done, that you will bring healing, that you will bring light, that you will bring wisdom into that situation. I hope we ultimately, our dream and our desire would be to see the birth of this child be very healthy. But if that is not the case, we pray that you will surround him with your love, surround them with your love, that you will give lots of opportunities to leaders at Manos to basically represent you with love and care, and that they will have the support they need to journey this journey with you and with people that love you. So this morning we offer them to you, and we trust that because we're united in our care for Darcy and our love for you, that you will take this situation. Just be present, powerful, and loving. Father, this morning we want to dedicate our own lives to you, because we don't know what this hour is going to bring. We don't know what the next. Every day is a journey with you. There's highs and there's lows, and there's struggles and challenges, but there's rejoicing. This morning we do want to rejoice as a congregation. We want to just worship you for the opportunities that we've had to serve you. Ask for your blessing upon our time, presence with us. Learn more about you.
We are going to take this morning just to say thank you to all the people that have served in this past year, and are going to be serving in this coming year, that have committed to that. And so we just have a little video to launch that, and then Julie has prepared a poem specifically for you right after.
Good morning. So yes, thank you, volunteers, but there are dangers to being a volunteer. Some are obscure, some quite clear. In setup, there are back injuries as you move the tables, and finger hyperextensions from sorting out those big cables. In the nursery, you get colds from the snotty little noses, and our teachers get brain jams from teaching about Moses. And people bring food. Well, how could that be bad? But you try teaching all those kids after the sugar that they've had. For the greeters, there is trauma when they forget a name. In lead 5-6, there's Keith, and the kids will never be the same. The sound guys can't win because there is always a glitch. There's a crackle, a static, a pop, or some hitch. And the worship time team smiles through all of the static, but the pre-practice time can be truly chaotic. For the pastor, the danger lies in going back home. Perhaps his loss of memory is from cutting. So why do we do it? Week in and week out. Why get up early to move these chairs about? Because much riskier than volunteering is to not join the team, where together we see God work. Really.
I just want to take time to embarrass all of you at this point in time. And what I'm going to have you do is, I'm just going to read off various areas of ministry, and I'm just going to want you to stand if you have served in that area of ministry. Now, we do have a lot of our servants from this past year still away on vacation. Our vacation season is extending up until mid-November, I think. It's one of the downsides of having awesome falls here in Nova Scotia. But what I do want to do is, if you've served in our children's ministry, and by that I mean the nursery, the kids' bridge, Lead 5-6, or in the security section, could you just stand? If you've done that in the past year, we're going to be doing it in this coming year. Could you just stand for a moment? Way at the back, okay. And the problem is most of our kids are still in the kids area. We'll thank them actually when we have lunch. Okay, you can sit down. If you've been involved in our connecting ministry, which is our greeters, our name tag, food tables, set up snacks, providing food, or connection card processing or signage, if you've been involved in any areas, you stand. Wow, okay, great, thank you. If you've been involved in our connection service here on Sunday mornings as far as setup, media, computer, sound, worship team, video, drama, creative team, if you've been on any of that, could you stand? Now, are you guys watching, noticing that there's a bunch of people standing every single time? You can sit down. If you've been involved in our Honduras ministry, as far as helping with that in this past year, could you stand? Actually, that'll be you. Yeah, please. If you've been involved in this past year with our discipleship process, whether in our growth groups as a teacher or as a shepherd or with our junior high, could you stand as well? Okay, thank you. If you've been involved in our caregiving ministry, which includes Stephen ministry, prayer team, women's ministry, men's coffee, communion setup, marriage ministry, or just unofficially targeting people to have coffee with them, could you stand? Wow, thank you. And if you've been involved, actually, I think most of our administration people are not here. Some are sick, some are on another continent. But if you've been involved, I'll just say in counting offering or any other administrative thing behind the church, could you stand as well? Thank you. And if you've been an elder in this past year or for this coming year, could you stand? Now, here's what I'd like you to do. Everyone that's already stood once, could you all stand together? Great. Could we just say thanks? Typically, in churches, 20% of the people doing 80% of the work, and that has not historically been true here at LifeBridge. And we've often had 80% of the people doing 80% of the work. I think that number's dipped a little in this past year. And so what we want to be encouraging you as we go through this series on understanding the servant heart of God and His design for you personally, we just want to encourage you to be thinking, yeah, is there a role that I can start playing? Even a small role. Is there just some role I can start playing? But I'm going to have the worship team come and just lead us in a little bit more singing, and then we'll dive into our Thanks, team. Appreciate it. You know, we did have a great day in the valley yesterday as well. Our community group went and just invited people to join with us. We did a hike in Kentville, a little-known hike through this ravine that most people aren't even aware is there. But there was this one little place where there was this pond with this poplar tree that sort of bent over the pond, and there was this thing there. And we convinced Russell's kids all to shimmy across the whole thing. Kudos to Melissa, who's stood with restraint and watched in fear and trembling. But they made it across. We had a phenomenal time picking apples. That was good. We did discover that Russell was incredibly out of shape, though. We are in a series talking about your design. How did God design you specifically? Last week we talked about God's design, if you can use that word, where God is complete and perfect in every single way. And we discussed that when you are complete and perfect in every single way, then you need nothing. So The reality is God can do nothing for himself because God doesn't need anything. Well, if God can do nothing for himself, then needless to say, there's absolutely nothing you can do for God. There's nothing you can do to make God's life better. He's already complete and full in every way. So then the question is, well, then what does it mean, this whole idea of serving God? Well, Scripture tells us, actually, you can't really serve God because he doesn't need to be served. But what we realize is that when God calls you to serve, who's the beneficiary of that? It says, well, the people you're serving and yourself. That God is actually inviting you to partner with him as he serves. Because if God can't do anything for himself, then the only thing God can do by nature is to serve others. God by nature is a servant God because he needs nothing. And when he created us to be his people, then he created us to represent him and to image him. And so God said, I will meet all your needs so that you don't have to chase after any of your needs. And so in so doing, I will free you to also become servants to other people. You don't have to chase after life. You don't have to chase after your food and clothing. He says, I know what you need. If you'll just trust me and seek me first, I'll give you everything you need. So you are free then to serve. And serving without strings attached. Not the idea of I'll serve if, but simply, no, I serve because. That's who God made me to be. And so what we want to start talking today, though, about is, well, how? Where for you specifically? What is your unique design as a person? Yeah, we're all servants now, but what's your unique design? And so I've got a few tools. I like tools. Just this. I wish I had a battery-powered rotor. That would be cool to use that here. But the interesting about tools here is that each one has very different components to it. Now, some of the components might actually look a little bit similar in the sense of I got a little drill bit here and a rotor bit, and I could actually almost interchange some of these. There are some components that look similar, but the real design of this is that each tool has specific pieces that it has built into it because it needs to perform a very specific task, which is different than the task this tool was created to fulfill. Now, they are similar. They've got both rotating pieces with bits in them, but they're still, even though they're similar, they have very distinct roles that they play. Now, if I take that even to the idea of my little staple gun here. Now, the staple gun is actually even quite a little bit more distinct. Its parts are even very much different than these ones. And the idea here is that when God creates us, there are going to be some similarities. There are going to be some pieces of us that look like pieces that other people have. But when all's said and done, God's saying, I'm designing you with all the unique intricacies of you because I've got a very specific role for you to play. He put a lot of thought into it. A lot of intent. Listen to what it says in these passages that you've heard here before. Ephesians 2:10. For we are his workmanship. In other words, he's designing you, he's shaping you, he's crafting you, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. So that God, even before he created you, before you're born in the womb, he's thinking, oh, I'm going to have a unique role for this person to play. Oh, and I'm going to have a unique role for this person to play. And I'm going to have to shape them differently because in order to fulfill the various roles I have for them in this life. And that gets even amplified in Psalm 139. Listen to what it says here. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. When it says fearful here, it means evoking a sense of awe. It says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. Now, this passage is going to create some tension for us in light of the prayer request that we had at the beginning of the service. We have a baby in the womb, and as the doctors are looking at this baby, they're saying there's some struggles going on with this child. In the way that this child is being shaped, we're very much concerned. How does that fit with us? How do we wrap our heads around that? What role is God playing? Well, we don't know. We can pray saying, God, here's what nature seems to be doing. Can you intervene in that? And can you bring your shaping work? And that's what Dave prayed. God, would you bring your shaping work to reshape this child towards health and towards life? That's our desire. But God may not do that. Because God may have another purpose, another role for that child to play in a different way. That's a little unique. And the question is, are we able to trust God in those moments if He has the big picture in mind? Understanding that even at the end of things, when God brings an end to life in this phase as we know it, He's going to make all things right. He's going to restore us to what we're supposed to be, as opposed to what we've been tainted and distorted by this world, in nature that's embedded in this world. But the interesting about this passage on the positive side is that you are not an accident. Keith, we might have said, was an accident. My brother Keith. But he was 4.5 years, he's 4.5 years older than me, which makes me even a greater accident from my parents' perspective. I was a little bit of a surprise. But from God's perspective, not an accident. He knew before the foundations of the world that I would be born. He said, Rob, I'm going to already equip you with certain abilities, personality, experiences, all those sorts of things. I'm going to start that in the womb. I'm going to start shaping you at that point. And I'm going to start preparing you for a role play. And that's true of you. When you're in the womb, God looked at you with passion, with intensity. He said, I just know how I'm going to shape your life. Now, that doesn't mean that God brought all the evil into your life as far as the experiences that you experienced. Those things have happened because sinful people chose to do sinful things. That's not God's plan. It's not His desire. But the interesting thing is about God, God has a way to work with that. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through this morning. But the idea here is that God, as He looks at you, He says, you are not an accident. And you may start to question your value and worth. You may look at yourself and saying, I'm a failure. My self-worth is way down here. I fear failure. I feel being shown as being inadequate. All these different things may be at work in our life. And that's the result of a broken relationship with God. Because when God got removed from the picture of our lives, it sort of left us feeling a little lost. A little bit wondering what our role in life really is. But this idea of God shaping people, there are some really cool examples in Scripture. One of the most obvious ones is a guy by the name that of Moses. Moses, for those of you who don't know the story, he was born at a very unfortunate time. Because at the point in time when the Israelites were all in Egypt, and they were working great there and accomplishing great things, but the problem was the numbers of the Egyptians started to grow, or of the Israelites started to grow and grow and grow, and the Egyptians looked at this massive growing community of Israelites, and they started to become scared of them. So they started to enslave them, and then they also said, we need to put to death the male children, so they stopped multiplying. And so they were starting to slaughter all the male children, except for Moses' mother, with Moses as an infant, to protect his life, puts him in this little wicker basket sort of thing, a boat, floats him in the Nile River. But just at that point in time, Pharaoh's daughter comes down to bathe, hears the baby in the crying or whatever, and she goes and finds the baby, takes the baby, and adopts the baby, raises this Israelite Moses now in Pharaoh's court in Egypt for 40 years. Moses is exposed to all the behind-the-scenes picture of rule in Egypt. He's seeing how the courts work. He sees how leadership works. Moses, at one point in time, though, thought he might become a deliverer of the Israelites, and he ends up killing an Egyptian to save an Israelite, which is a big no-no, and he knew that his life would be on the line. Moses, now in a sense of failure, flees Egypt, goes into the wilderness, eventually marries a shepherd's daughter. Moses becomes a shepherd, and he's just out in hiding for the next 40 years because he's hiding from Pharaoh. Well, at the end of that 40 years, he's now 80 years old. Pretty much thinking, what more is left for my life to do? He's feeling like a failure. he's feeling like he can't accomplish much, but he does have a wife, he does have a child, he does have a career. Shepherding. It's not what he thought it was going to be. But it's at that point in time that God calls Moses through the big burning bush experience and calls Moses and says, Moses, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually send you back to Egypt now, and I'm going to have you lead all my people, all the Israelites, miraculously out of Egypt, and you're going to take them back to their homeland, to the promised land, to the land of Canaan. Moses, that's what you're going to do. And Moses goes, yay, God, let's go do it, right? Yeah, well, if you know the story, you know that's absolutely the opposite of what he does. Listen to what he says. In Exodus 3:11, we start to see that Moses' sense of worth has been greatly diminished. His sense of value, his sense of significance, his sense of impact and influence has been greatly diminished through his life experiences. And he says, but Moses said to God, who am I? Get that? Who am I? Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? And God, you're forgetting, I'm the failure. God, you're forgetting that as soon as I walk into Egypt, Pharaoh's going to want my life. God, you're forgetting that I'm a nobody. I tried doing stuff in the past, it hasn't worked. He then gives God another excuse in 4 verse 1. Then Moses answered, but behold, they will not believe me or listen to my voice, for they'll say, the Lord didn't appear to you. And he's saying, if I go back to the Israelites, they're going to look at me and say, instead of me saying, who am I, they're going to look at me saying, who are you? And there's going to be such a distrust. Nobody's going to value me. Nobody's going to respect me. No one's going to listen to me. And then finally, he says to God, but Moses said to the Lord, oh my Lord, I am not eloquent either in the past, or since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and of tongue. In other words, God, I am so inadequate. How can I serve you, God, in the way that you're calling me to serve with you when I'm like this, when I'm like me? Have you ever struggled with some of these senses of God? I'm just really frustrated with who you make me. I'm really frustrated with what I have to contribute. And I'm really frustrated with what I'm accomplishing with my life up to this point in time because it's really not a whole lot. And I feel pretty much failure. That's what Moses is feeling like. And so God responds to Moses with the whole tongue thing. Then the Lord says to him, in 4:11, says, who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall speak. In other words, what God's saying is, look guys, if I've made you for a purpose, it's not really who you are, it's who I am. I'm the one that equips you. I'm the one that enables you. If I'm calling you to something, stand up and get to it because I will prepare the way for you to do it. I will give you success in what I call you to. It's our fears and inadequacies that are working saying, God, I just can't trust that you'll do that. God, I just can't trust that you'll take someone like me and you'll actually accomplish anything significant. I'm too much of a lost case. I'm nobody. I'm not. And God says, do you not understand? It's not about me. It's about me. I am the one who will accomplish it through you. That's what God wants. You know, it's kind of interesting that even after all that, Moses is so defeated in his sense of worth and identity. He says in 4:13, oh my Lord, please would you just send someone? Would you just have someone else? I don't know about you, but I think it's probably true for each of us. We have times in our life when we just feel useless. There's times when we look at ourselves saying, what could I possibly accomplish? But do you understand what you're doing at that point in time? It's not really a statement about yourself. Ultimately. It's ultimately your statement about God. That God, you really did not design me well. God, you are not really invested in me. God, you must have turned the other way when I was being formed. God, you've lost sight of me. God, I don't really believe, God, that you will use me for your purpose. And because we just trust that about God, it leaves us where? Frustrated, a little bit angry, disappointed, lost. And yet, that's not God's purpose. That's not what God has for you. And so Moses wanted to wallow in self-pity, but God gets a little bit frustrated with him and said, Moses, go. I prepared things for I got the way established. Look, even your brother Aaron is going to be meeting on the way. He will be your spokesperson. He'll take care of things. And so God has it all worked out. If we only trust God and start saying, God, how can I serve with you? Because it's not sometimes I think we have this idea, God, I will serve you, and it's me by myself and my efforts trying to measure up to God's expectations. And that just doesn't work too well. But God's not asking you to serve him because he doesn't need to be served. What God's saying is, I'm at work and I'm serving. Will you join with me? And we'll serve together. In which case, you don't have to worry about your abilities. You don't have to worry about your inadequacies. You don't have to worry about your failures, because you and I will do it together, and we will accomplish significant things together, because that's the type of God I am. So what God's wanting to do here with each of you, he's wanting you to invite you into a journey with him that is specifically tailored to who he made you to be. And your journey is going to be incredibly different than my journey, because he's designed you differently. And so when God calls you into something, though, it's a little bit scary, because he's going to call you into something that he knows is going to shape you even more for his purpose. It's going to be something that's going to be bigger than you. Something that you in yourself saying, I'm not sure I can do this. God says, good. I'm not inviting you to do something that just you can do. I'm inviting you into something that only you and I can do together. I'm inviting you into something bigger than yourself. But in order for you to accomplish something bigger than yourself, you need to be willing to say, God, I trust you. Meet my needs. I trust you to provide me with what I will need to accomplish what you want me to accomplish. And God, I trust that you'll take care of the rest of my life. So I don't have to worry about that. I can focus on what you're calling me to. And so in that, it'll be bigger than you. It'll seem undoable. It will stretch your faith. It will force you to evaluate your trust in God. And it'll be incredibly exciting. See, this is the cool thing. When you start to understand what God is calling you personally, he's calling you to a life of faith. He's calling you to have a life of impact. When he created us as his image, he was creating you to be his representative ruler in this world that was supposed to go through creation, representing his rule and authority and truth and love to all of creation. And he would empower you to do that. And Jesus said, everything that I'm doing, you will be able to do the same things as you go out representing. That requires faith and risk. You're willing for God to continue to shape you in ways that are maybe a little bit. But the interesting thing is that he says it is the Lord's will, the Father's will, that he bear much fruit. It's God's desire that he bear much fruit. But sometimes we have all these incredible things happen to us. And what God says here is, I can even take the bad things that happen to you. He says, I didn't cause those bad things to happen. Those aren't my intent. Those aren't my purposes. That's not my work. I'm not the author of evil. But I will take the evil in your life that has happened, that others have done to you, or even things you've done to yourself. It says, I can take the messed up garbage in your life, and if you will trust me with your life, I will take the garbage of your life, and I will flip it around. I'll clean it up, and I will use it for even greater purpose. He says that in Romans 8:28, you know the passage, and we know that for those who love God, that's the starting point. If you love God and you trust him with your life, that he works all things together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. Now, get the sandwich here. We like to focus on that God makes everything turn out good. But that sandwich between you choosing to love God and then you choosing to embrace his purposes for your life. That when you choose to love God and you choose to embrace his purposes, whatever it is he's going to invite you into the journey with him, that he will take those things and he'll turn them out for good. And we've seen God do that over and over and over again. God will actually tell us, Paul writes in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 3, that he will comfort you at times when you're going through through trials. He will comfort you so that you can comfort others. That the comfort you've received from God, you'll allow it to flow through you, and He'll use the comfort He's given you through what you went through so that you can help others as they go through. And some of you have been able to do that. You've gone through incredible hardships. What's God done with those hardships as you surrender to Him? He's allowed you then to come into other people's lives who are going through hardship, and you can encourage them. Isn't that incredible? That God will take the evil in your life and use it for His good, life transforming. One of the struggles in this journey is that it takes a lot of time. Sometimes. Now, He'll use you each step of the way. He'll use you wherever you're at. But take the example of Moses. 80 years of shaping for the ultimate purpose He prepared for to be built. 80 years, 40 years in the Pharaoh's court, learning all about the court of Pharaoh and how to address Pharaoh and how to speak to Pharaoh and how the workings all went there. 40 years of that experience. 40 years of a wilderness experience. Now, how are those two going to come into play for God's purposes? He's going to send Pharaoh or Moses back into Pharaoh's court. He's going to address Pharaoh. He's going to speak to Pharaoh, and he's going to call Pharaoh to let the people go. Pharaoh will eventually let the people go with a little bit of coercion. And Moses is going to lead them into the wilderness, where for another 40 years, he's going to have to lead them in the wilderness. Isn't it kind of convenient that Moses knows how to live in the wilderness? But he's had 40 years of training and experience. You see, God was shaping Moses. It wasn't coincidental that Moses was found by Pharaoh's daughter in the Nile River and raised in Pharaoh's court. It wasn't coincidental that Moses ended up in the wilderness for 40 years. God was shaping his life every step of the way. Now, Moses just looked at the shaping experience, and he wanted to condemn himself, lower his worth, his value, his ability to contribute. But God was saying to him, no, I formed you. I shaped all the days because I knew all the days that were going to be coming down the road for you, and I equipped you for those days. And I will have impact through you. The reason sometimes we don't have impact through the days is because usually we've dropped sight of those two things. We stop loving God and trusting Him, and we stop living according to His purposes. And so, as we look back, sometimes we say, I haven't accomplished too much. Well, it's probably because you'll probably notice that those two things dropped off. Loving God, living for His purpose. But when we start to love God, live for His purposes, then we start to see God do incredible transforming work in our life. And so I really want to encourage you to think through, who has God made you to be? Think through your personality type. Are you a people person, a task-oriented person? Are you someone that's very subtle and encouraging, or are you someone that's very blunt and upfront? Are you someone that you've got these interests versus those interests? Have you had these experiences versus those experiences? Are there certain things that excite you and generate you? Are there things that bore you? Are there certain things that you seem to notice and are a little bit more critical about, perhaps because you're mentally geared that way, and other areas that you could just care less about? Isn't it kind of interesting that even here in a church scenario, some of you are going to notice some things, and the rest of you could care less about those things, but you're going to notice these things. And why is that? Because God has geared you for those things that you notice. And He wants you to have a role there. It's going to be rooted in love. It's going to be rooted. And what we want to say here at LifeBridge is we want you to experiment with how God has shaped you. And I don't even care whether you cross the line of faith, whether you're just checking out God and you're not even sure if He even exists. We'd like to say, yeah, but He still shaped you to have meaningful contribution. And if you even want to get involved here, we'll give you some role to play here in this LifeBridge community if you want to start figuring out who God's made you to be. And we want to encourage people to say, hey, I think I might be interested in that, but that terrifies the living daylights. So it'll be great. That's probably what you're being called to. Because it's going to stretch you. And we want you to have a freedom to fail. Get into it, try it, mess up severely, and then we'll say, yeah, that's really about what you're called to. but you can fail in love, and you can fail in freedom, and you can start refining where your strengths really do lie. You can start refining where God's calling you. The key is that once you're serving, God will start shaping you, because you already have a servant's heart. He can start moving you to what He's really called you to, or He's going to give you a little bit of experience here, because He's really preparing you for this here. It is God's will that you bear much, that you be extremely effective with your life for His will. And so we want to encourage you to be thinking through, even here at LifeBridge or in your community or in your families, how can I start representing God in ways that absolutely terrifies me, but I really think He started calling me to it. And my guess is that as you start to focus more on God, and you start praying, God, what do you want me doing? You're going to start putting in your heart a picture, dream, a vision of impact. That your sin nature, that your distorted view of self is going to want to push out of the picture. No, I could never. But God's saying, yeah, but that's what I'm calling. You say, no, but God, I couldn't. Yes, you can't, but I can, and we're going to do it together. So let's do it together. And so I want you thinking through, is God calling you to a greater area of impact in your life? Or is He even saying, would you at least start serving? Start exploring the design that I've given. And if that's something that's of interest to you, then we want to say, talk to us. We would love to see every single soul, every single person at LifeBridge, no matter where you're at, playing some role in trying to understand what you're making. So you might even want to take your connection card and just write on it, I'd like to explore this. We'll be in touch with you. I'd like to maybe try and sing on the worship. I'd actually like to maybe preach someday. I'd like to maybe learn how to do the sound equipment. I'd like to learn whatever it is. If there's something that's prompting you, write that down. Go back to you. If there's a prayer request you'd like us to pray for, put that down on your connection card. And those connection cards can just stay on the seats. I'm just going to close in prayer. Father, I, in fear and trepidation, have many times in my life questioned my own abilities, questioned my adequacy, questioned things. And those fears and insecurities as I've often wanted to hinder me from moving forward. But Lord, I want to thank you that there have been times when you just pushed me. Your Spirit pushed me, or you used other believers to push me to take a step of faith and courage, just to trust you and to try and do greater things with you. And that's been such a transforming thing for me. My prayer for everyone here this morning, and even LifeBridgers not here, when you call us to greater roles of service, where we get to serve with you for greater, would you call us to things that would stretch us, but that you would be adequate for us? Would you call us into things that would just help us understand we have value and worth to you? We are not insignificant. Every single person, even this child, if it is born with Down syndrome, we trust you have an incredible godly purpose for that child. And that healing will come later. But Lord, we still would want to pray for healing now. That's our desire. If that fits with your purposes, we'll let you all. But Father, speak to us.